Today we welcome a musical husband and wife duo, Linda Davis and Rylee Scott. Labeled as a song stylist, Linda Davis's unique ability to interpret a song has made her one of Nashville's favorite vocalists. And Linda Davis has played to sold-out crowds with the likes of Garth Brooks, George Strait, Reba McEntire, and Kenny Rogers, just to name a few. And in 2016, Linda and her family, including husband Rylee Scott and daughters Rylee Scott of Lady A and Rylee Scott, released the critically acclaimed two-time Grammy-winning album, Rylee Scott and the Scott Family, Love Remains, which topped the Billboard Top Christian Albums chart and debuted at number 2 on the Billboard Top Country Albums chart. Linda's husband, Rylee Scott, a talented songwriter and musician who was the guitarist and background vocalist in Reba McEntire's band for 7 years. And he was the first national champion of the Nashville Network's You Can Be a Star. And he has had songs recorded by Leanne Rimes, Joe DiMessina, and his wife, Linda Davis. Both are some of the most talented singer-songwriters in Nashville. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome one of country music's most successful marriages, Linda Davis and Rylee Scott. Welcome to the program.
Ooh,
Man,
thank you.
I feel like I need to applaud for ourselves. You read it just like we wrote it.
And then some.
It is my job to honor you and build you up because in truth, you two are great superstars. But what I really want to know is give me the backstory about how you two met.
Oh my. Okay. This might go on. Just get the hook after me if I don't make my story short enough. But anyways, I moved from Texas, East Texas, in 1982 to try to get on the Grand Ole Opry. That was my goal from the time I was a little girl. Little did I know that folks who kind of helped it be possible for me to move to town, Lang had already met them and knew them as well. So when I went to work at a little studio, the first week I was in town, because I had to make a little money, look who comes in the studio looking all fine and with his shirt unbuttoned and his hairy chest just like flying out. And I was like, "Ooh, wow, I've never met a fellow that looks quite like this." And he was very kind, not just on the outside to look at, but I learned quickly that he had a sweetheart. So that's how and when we met. And if you want to fill in some more of the blanks, you go ahead. My hunky husband.
Yeah, hunky husband. Yeah. So to add a little bit of that, it was really, we feel that God brought us together. Looking back, it's easier to see that, years down the line, but he orchestrated it because I was here for 6 months prior to Linda moving here. I'm from South Carolina originally. And as she said, we knew some of the same people. And what happened was I met these folks and they took me in to record 3 songs with another young lady from Texas whose name's Stephanie Simone. And we recorded 3 songs. Our voices didn't mesh, so they brought in another guy to sing with Stephanie, and they didn't like that. And then Stephanie went home, and then one of the gentlemen that we were working with remembered Linda from when she was 15 years old, that she had come up and recorded a session with him. And so they ended up flying her up. And
My first airplane ride, by the way.
Yeah. And they flew her up, and she ended up putting her voice with the other guy on the original 3 tracks that I had sang. So they just replaced our voices, but we were singing to the same music, even back then.
Oh, that's so sweet. There's a song.
Yeah.
Right there.
So I hope that's clear as mud.
Singing to the same music.
Music truly brought us together.
Well, I heard that you kept your relationship secret for a time. Why was that?
Well,
I'll let you answer that since the label were the ones that didn't want you to wear your ring or
on a video or two.
Yeah.
That was the 80s. And the idea of, we don't want him to not be as attractive to the women or her to be as appealing to the guys it was just a little overthought, I think. But when it's your career and you're young and influenced by silliness, sometimes you just fall into step and it's like, it really doesn't make a difference. But anyway, there may still be some of that going on now.
It could be. Not with us.
No.
You know, when you say him, that was that pronoun I'm particularly fond of because that's what her family called me for about 2 years.
Well, and let me explain, because the duet that the partner that I ended up singing with, his name was Skip. And that's the same music that Lang was describing that he and Stephanie had created. So Skip and Linda became the little duet for a minute. And so whenever my family back home, oh, Linda Kay's up in Nashville. Oh, she's got that duet, Skip and Linda. Well, then I meet Lang, and pretty soon after getting here, start falling in love and take him home. And they just assume that's Skip. So for a long time he was Skip. And then
Dr. Bond, Skip, back then, he's a nice man.
Talented.
Truly a very talented songwriter and still is. But at the time, and this is 1982, he had a curly afro hairdo.
Yeah.
Is that Skip Ewing?
Nope.
No, it was Skip Eaton is his name.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that would have really confused
And
me.
I had like the precursor to a mullet,
What?
you know, with a beard.
was all out.
But I had a helmet full of hair. So I looked nothing.
And a chest full. Did I mention that?
Yeah, and I looked nothing like Skip.
No. And you were 10 years younger.
Yeah.
But the other part that confused people, Lang, L-A-N-G, there's nobody down there named Lang. So that in itself confused my sweet little mama. So instead of getting it wrong, my little mama would just
throw in a pronoun. She would say, Linda, do you want some more gravy on your biscuit, honey? Oh, no, ma'am, I'm okay. And then she'd glance over at me at the end of the table. She said, what about him? So
that way she didn't get it wrong. It wasn't Skip. It wasn't Lane. It wasn't Scott, because our last name, married name, is also a first name, Scott. So that's a lot of confusion. So
now we've talked 5 minutes about pronouns.
Well, they're popular these days.
Well, you know what's funny is back in this, well, I'd say as far back as the 50s, you know, the music industry would make sure that the female singers didn't appear married or dating anyone. And it may have gone that way for some of the men, but nowadays the paparazzi in the media is teaming up couples out of the clear blue just to sell magazines. So I think today, I don't think they're hiding anything. But
you know what I feel like for young people, and I won't mention any names, and we can probably all kind of come up with 2 or 3 couples that are both in show business, whether it be film or music. When their relationship or breakup is in the limelight, that breaks my heart. I just feel like those are too sacred of times in the relationship to be public or messed with. Now, some people expose their stuff, and so you ask for it, you get it, you know, all the good and the bad and the ugly. But there's just some times when you're developing a relationship that you really don't need to document it. You really don't need to selfie everything, because sometimes it's just harder to deal with reality in public.
But you know what? There's a double standard in the media between not technically film and television, but in music, there's a big double standard that in country music, if a relationship goes bad, it becomes a scarlet letter upon one of the people in that relationship. And for some, it has hurt their career. I'm not going to mention any names, but we can think back of those who may have had a marriage breakup in country music, and one of the artists basically possibly lost a lot of momentum in their career. So, I mean, why is there a double standard that we see with country music compared to other genres out there?
It's like you described falling out of favor with the fans, I guess. I guess the media kind of, that's what the fans learn about, whatever the media shows and the spin they put on it. I don't know, but I tell you what, breakups is what country songs are made of.
Yeah. And, and,
No.
and my opinion on that is I think country fans are just, they're down home, folks, really, and they get attached to their artist, I believe, on a personal level, and they feel closer to a country artist than maybe some other genres of music. That's my belief. And so as what happens, unfortunately, in our lives and with our other personal friends, when there's a divorce, you end up, you either get the husband with the divorce or you get the wife with the divorce.
That's so
and I think that's kind of what happens in country music more than any of that.
Somebody put it that way in a conversation you were sharing with me. He said, "Yep, I got her in the divorce, and my wife got," or vice versa. Whatever. It's like I don't like to have to pick, but life goes on, and hopefully what's news today is going to be old news tomorrow. So
yeah, well, country music still has the, the persona of being wholesome, and the fan base is so strong, so loyal, that when something happens within a relationship between two musicians or two artists that got married, and then something happens, for whatever reason the cause of the divorce was, one side can get hurt on the career end of it, and it just seems like everything falls apart. Where, we expect it in rap, we expect it in rock, we expect it in pop, because they're all tabloid. When country ends up in tabloid, it doesn't become very favorable for those artists that broke up. But for you two, how long? Because I understand that your courtship was very long. So how long did you date before finally getting married?
2 years.
2 years.
Oh, it was only 2 years?
That seems long to you.
Yeah.
I don't know what. No, I think it is probably to some, but 2 years that's a pretty good. Somebody in 2 years.
It would have been a lot sooner if because I asked her first, probably about 12 months in, and she turned me down. And so I'm hard-headed enough and was full of myself back then. So I said.
So
full of myself.
Okay.
I said, to myself, I said, she's going to ask me next time.
You talk to yourself.
And so she did.
and he said yes.
Oh, well, good. Well, let me ask you this. Was the delay due to your music careers?
Yes. I felt like, and this is the truth, I told you, and it's the same today. I just felt like I was... Let me see how to put it. At the point that I asked him, I knew that I could do without a career if that never happened, but I couldn't do without you. When he asked me, I wasn't able to say that yet.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this. How did you juggle dual music careers and then adding a child to the mix, which Hillary was the first child? And of course, ladies and gentlemen, Rylee Scott, of Lady A. So how did you juggle all that successfully?
It was difficult for a while. And when you'd mentioned in the intro that I had won a talent show on the Nashville network. And so after that, the producer of that show, he gave me a job. I had gone to school for media arts. And so I had a little knowledge there, and he was wanting to keep me in town to record and to look for songs because he wanted a success story to tell out of that talent show. And so during that time when we had Hillary, I was working at the Nashville network in television production. I was co-producing and associate producer on several strip shows that are 5 days a week. And Linda was at that time signed with her first label deal, and she was going out on radio tours to meet with program directors and disc jockeys, and you take them out to lunch or take them to dinner or go by the station and visit, or all of the above. And it's a real busy time to introduce them to the artist in hopes of them liking them well enough to put their record on and trying it to see if there's an audience there. So that was probably, and you can confirm this or deny it, but to me, that was the most challenging time of our marriage, because she was gone pretty much from Monday through Friday and get home on the Saturday and Sunday. I was working a full-time job and had Hillary. By that time, she was a toddler,
agree.
So I'd get up. It was a full, and believe me, I have an incredible amount of respect towards single mothers and single parents, because when you are the only one, and it can be someone that travels, but when you're the one to have to make the meals and drop off to daycare and go work a full time and be there 100%, and then get off and pick the child up, bring them home, feed them supper, get them a bath and to bed. It's, I've got an incredible respect for single parents.
Well, back then, that was before cell phones, correct? So,
Oh, yeah.
so it was very hard for both of you to actually stay in touch unless you actually picked up a landline, correct?
That's exactly what we did, because the landline in my hotel, and and this is before we had any road experience. So there wasn't any, the visions of what it's like, you'd correct me if I'm wrong, baby, the visions from at the house of what Linda's out there doing, popping around with these radio people, and the record guy is, taking me around to meet people. We're going to dinner. They have this wine. They order this wine. I didn't realize I was going to be paying for it later. But anyway, so it's like, oh, she's just out there living it up. And I'm back home just wearing myself out. And our child, you can see how that would get twisted up. Now I'm out there not really necessarily enjoying myself, because I'm not at that point, for sure. I didn't really like the taste of wine too much. And, you go to one steak dinner or one, it all starts tasting the same, and the hotels start looking alike. And I would call when I get to the hotel, and by then he's finally got Hillary down and he's tired, and that's when I'm available to talk. And he doesn't really, how this can get. You traveled and been apart from your wife, and that's a good time for an argument. And the last thing you need to do is get in any kind of difficult discussion when everybody's tired.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, did tension enter in during that time?
Oh, major tension.
And what was
yes.
how long was it started out?
Oh, it started out, this is going to last for, 12 weeks, so for 3 months.
We could do that.
12, I said, we can do that. I'm in production here, so this is the crunch time, and we had a sweet nanny that came over and would give me some relief, for a few hours that I could go. Back then I was running, and, as a way to deal with some stress, I guess. But, so that went on, but that 3 months then turned into another 3 months. And so it pretty much for an entire year, it was her going out several days a week, on a radio tour. And it was always with the caveat, with the carrot of, oh, we're close, we believe this next single is going to be the one. And just, they were telling her, you just got to come out. Because by then she was getting tired of hearing me, complain to her to say, hey, we got to make sure to get our family priorities, keep those in order. And she bought into that, and because that's who she is. And so it was that, tension is the perfect word for it. And it wasn't just between her and me, it was between her and her label representatives. And because it was just a hard time for us to juggle. We were not, people think you sign a record deal that you get millions of dollars.
No.
We were closer to starving at that time than at any other time during our marriage.
Because I had to stop working at the
piano bar. I'll say that, not starving, but financially challenged.
Tight. Yeah. And because I had to stop and give up my piano bar thing, which was our other part of our income. So all that to say, it sounds like we're whining. We knew that we had to get through this to potentially get to a good place where we could do what we love to do in the fashion that could be good for our family.
Well, then,
and we felt it was worth it. It was hard. And I would compare it to maybe somebody who's going into the medical world and they have to do their, what do you call those different phases of if you're
residencies?
That.
Yeah.
And I mean, they sleep at the hospital, they say. I mean, that's hard. And the wives that by then they might have been together a few years and have a child. That's hard. But let's hang on.
Well, let's fast forward just a bit, because both of you have a very strong connection to Reba McEntire. How did all of that come together, and did that make life a little bit easier?
There was structure, and definitely that at that point when I had been doing demos and around town, and Reba got a bunch of those songs because the writers thought, well, if she hears Linda sing this song, she might could hear herself sing it, because we have some similar tones and ways we work with our voice. And so she knew of me, and I was hearing compliments back that she likes your voice and oh, she's your biggest fan, blah, blah. So I thought, that's so cool. So I had a little show, and you weren't in the band on this particular one. I went to Missouri, the Missouri State Fair. And it's no joke. I followed the armadillo races, or they followed me. I might have opened for them.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Under the free tent.
It's a free tent. Yeah. She was playing the big venue that night across the way where the track was. So Narvel came and watched my show, invited me afterwards tonight, won't you come over and see Reba? She wants to meet you. And we've been hearing your voice, blah, blah. So long story short, got to do that. And then he said, well, why don't we talk when we get back to Nashville and just kind of see where we're all at. Maybe we can do something together. And that's when we began. I was an artist that they managed, Starstruck Management. Shortly after that, they put us on a few shows opening. And that's when Lang, he was in that band, and we were together. We got a little bus and did that thing. The airplane crash happened during that time frame.
Yeah, Reba lost her band.
You remember that?
Yeah, in a plane tragically, and a road manager, and
2 pilots.
So she was devastated with that and took some time off, for obvious reasons. And then when she reestablished, and there were other artists, and this is just another great thing to say about the country music industry.
And community.
Other artists were off, Barbara Mandrell, Dolly, they were offering Reba because they wanted her to get back out there, and she was mourning her band members and her family, travel family on the road. And so she did, but then they offered her their band to go out with Reba to play for her. And so she and Narvel put another band together and went out for a few months and finished off that year. But then the next year they wanted to revamp their band some more. And so they hired us as background vocalists primarily. And I played rhythm guitar in a wonderful, super talented band that they put together. And so that's how that came about. And there we were off and running. And I think that was in January of 93. I'm pretty sure it's 92 or 93.
And that's about when I did that armadillo tent. And they met me and then came to Nashville back home, and we all sat together as a team, and that's when it all kind of started. And
so by that time, Hillary, and I'm sure this is kind of where you're leading, Hillary's 7 years old by then, 5 or 6 years old. And so it just so happened that my dad had changed jobs in South Carolina. He'd worked for a company for a long time, and they'd gotten sold. So it was time, they kind of made it, incentivized him to leave. And so they were looking for something else, and they loved coming to Nashville. And so we made them an offer, and we actually employed my mom to come up and be Hillary's nanny. And so that was the only way that allowed us the peace of mind and the knowing that Hillary would be in good family hands, and that would be nurtured, and all of the things that were important to us to be loved, to love your child unconditionally, to boost them with self-esteem and confidence and safety and security. and my parents filled that role very, very well.
Because we were side people. It wasn't our show.
Yeah.
So none of the other band members had their kids. We were band members. So that's how that works.
And Hillary got to go out a lot with us. And I mean, there's truly, you hear a story sometimes, but this is true. I mean, she would take naps inside of a guitar case on the side of the stage, you know, when we're sound checking and stuff. So
we
it
would
was,
fly
yeah.
her out or whatever. But it was a wonderful, with Reba and her organization, and it was a wonderful place to be and to learn. Oh my goodness, when you're standing on stage in the wings or backstage, you know, at interviews, at anything where Reba had us be a part of it, we were learning from a pro.
Yeah. And their organization too, she just a consummate entertainer, but at the same point, they ran a wonderful corporate business side of that, you know, that was behind the scenes. They had structure. We had 401k plans. We had, you know, access to healthcare benefits. We would go on the road there for several, I mean, there's the 90s was the heyday of country music with multi-platinum artists left and right. And, you know, we had at the height of that, there were 12 buses and 23 semi-tractor trailers on the road. So it was like a major circus that came to town because it was, you know, and all of the trucks, I mean, there was choreography of how the trucks would have to back up and unload. So all of that to be said, we were exposed to that side of it too, which was a wonderfully corporate run business that they maintained. And we can sit here and we could talk all day about those experiences, but I would like to end it with saying this. I would take a bullet for Reba McEntire because she is a consummate professional in every way that you could imagine.
Well,
And
Linda, when's the last time you sang with Reba, Does He Love You?
Okay, so she had a new record come out, an inspirational gospel record. It's been COVID has me off by a couple of years, like probably the rest of you.
All of
But
us.
she had a new record that she released, and she presented it and had a release outing at the Ryman Auditorium. And she had some friends come in, her mama and her sisters came, and because they had a song on the record, but she also did a bunch of her hits. And she invited me down there to do ours, and she had.
Well, it brought the house down.
Well,
yeah,
it was just fun, and it was like we'd never left, kind of a thing. And it's been a long time now, but it's just a sweet bond there that we have that hard to describe. I tell you something. After we left her organization, and she was our biggest supporter of doing such because she knew that we needed to try some different things. Well, I pretty much parlayed right into Kenny Rogers. And what a relationship and what a run. Lang was not involved in that because Lang started his own company here in Nashville. You can explain that a little bit, but my time with Kenny Rogers, that was something special, and I feel like a blessing that I can't even put it all together into words if I tried, because there were so many sweet moments and the relationship, the camaraderie, the mutual admiration, and our time on stage was just flat out fun. And he made me feel like a queen. I mean, he just took such good care of me.
Well, I mean, you were a household name when it came to Reba, and then catapulted to singing with Kenny Rogers. How long did that musical relationship last?
You know, Lang reminded me, I don't remember what show we were doing, but he was talking to the audience and said, you know, it just dawned on me that Linda spent more time on stage with Kenny than on stage with Reba. So the years added up, probably over 20.
Well, Lang, you started.
Non-stop, but.
Yeah, because, you know, Lang, you started your business while she was touring with Kenny Rogers. How did life change at that time?
Well, it changed from, being taken care of and, just waking up on the bus and going and checking into a hotel room that somebody else had booked and, going over to, so all things there, to starting a business that when I started with a buddy of mine, a digital media company that we started, this was in 2001, building high-end websites for artists and running and converting what then was a snail mail fan club over to an online model, which made perfect sense. And we were one of the first companies to do that successfully, and started out like gangbusters, and it was a very good business model for several years. But when you start a business, it's 60, 70 hours a week, and you bring by then we did have cell phones, so you're never off.
Can you add a little 1-year-old into the picture?
Yeah.
Well, that was my next question, because your daughter Hillary was born in 1986, but then 14 years later Rylee was born. So was Rylee a surprise?
Yeah, do the math on that one, Dr.
14
Bond.
years.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So was Rylee a surprise?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and proof that God has a sense of humor.
And we're so glad he does.
And she's just been the biggest blessing. So yeah, that worked into the family mix as well. But we were at a different place financially then. We were a different place, more mature in our spiritual lives, and really had sharpened those priorities.
Hillary, if you talk to her, she'd probably say, yeah, and they had a built-in babysitter.
Yeah.
What was the difference between raising Hillary and Rylee while in the music industry?
Well, let me just give you a day in the life of our family there for a minute. So Hillary was going to the prom. I guess she would have been 17, 16. And we go out looking for a dress. On that same shopping spree, we go down the street to look for walking shoes for Rylee Jean. So it's extreme.
Yeah.
It was about as extreme as it probably could get. You got this teenager, and then you got the toddler, and
Linda would
then
say
you got Lang.
Linda would go in. She would. I'd get home at night from work, and she'd be telling me, "Yeah, I walked in there, and they would go in, and people would think that it was Hillary's baby."
Yeah, that
so it was just,
and it could have been, but it was just. But I don't know. Maybe one of the sweet things God was doing on the front end by surprising us with a child that far apart from her sister is He knew on the back end, when it comes to the empty nest syndrome, that I would have a hard time with that. So He figured that out for us ahead of time. So we never really had that, because when Hillary left for school and then career, Rylee was still here and needed us. Then Hillary she got married, and then she gave us some grandbabies, 3. And then Rylee just recently, she's 21 now, she just launched out on her own. But we have these grandbabies coming in and out. So it's really not empty.
Well, let me ask you this, because when Hillary made it big with Lady A, did she ever come to both of you to ask for advice being in the music industry and being at that level, because you were both touring with Reba and Kenny Rogers, so you knew what the ropes were like. So did she come to you for advice?
I'll say this. Our family.
Good question.
Our family dynamic has always been, and I pray it always will be, conversation wide open, communication wide open. We have always just sat around and talked openly and honestly. So that just sort of was baked in to our family.
I'm a very type A personality, so and this is my daughter, and you see, okay, you're headed down a path to where you're going to hit a major obstacle here, and so you want to be, and I have no problem of at that time, a vocal of articulating to her
She was underage.
my advice, and then Linda would chime in with her advice. As Hillary was exposed to more and more, things, and they hit so big that they quickly, Hillary quickly obliterated the level of success that we ever experienced.
Yeah.
It was,
and
so
we're thankful.
and so she was on a different, plane of decisions that she was making, and the advisors around her. And so when we would learn of those types of things and those types of issues or topics that she would bring into the conversation, this was still before she was married, we would inject our opinions, but base it more from a mom and dad and family perspective.
Keep it real.
And she always, Hillary is more like me than our youngest daughter, Rylee, is. So Hillary's pretty hard-headed and very type A. And so we would go back and forth a little bit, but she always listened. And then it was affirmation maybe 3 months down the line that I would hear the same words come out of her mouth that we had told her,
But she also made decisions that we weren't necessarily in favor of that went fine. So that just is what parents, you never stop being a parent.
Well, then how did the Love Remains project come together?
Oh, wow. How much time do we have? I don't want to wear you out, but
I'm good.
Okay, because this is a sweet.
Yeah, in 2011, my father, whose name was Willard Scott Jr., so Willard Scott, and he was a very gregarious, big personality, booming voice, and so, but he contracted AML leukemia in the early spring of that year, 2011. And so we walked through a journey with him for 6 months of him battling, that cancer, got him in remission. And then, finally he succumbed to the disease, to the cancer. But the way we looked at it, and I love what my pastor, Larry Granger, he texted me, but when we announced it, he said, "Congratulations on your dad's heavenly promotion." And so that's, and my dad was prayed up. And so those 6 months journey, we'd started a Caring Bridge site for him. And if your listeners and watchers are not familiar with Caring Bridge, it's a social platform to where for people that are going through health challenges, terminal illnesses, that type of thing, you can create a page, and it's a way to let all of their friends and family know if a patient's family member is there with them, they can send out information and only have to do it one time, to update everybody on the progress. Well, we had several hundred people join that, and they would send posts, and we would read them to my dad through that time, and his lifelong friends, his childhood friends from South Carolina, and the friends that they had met in Nashville. And so all of those things came in. We would read those to him, and they were better than medicine. My sister and I would blog, and Linda would blog sometimes to update people. So it was just a special time. It was a hard time, and yet it was a very special time. And I tell people, my dad, he taught me all of these life lessons through my teenage years, and then you go, and I moved to Nashville, and you get married, and fast forward 25, 30 years, and yet I had the privilege to walk with him through that last several months of his life. And he taught me one more extremely valuable lesson. And he taught me how to die with dignity and with grace. And it was just, sometimes you have the opposite end of the spectrums of things, of like going through something that's the most difficult, but yet it's also the most fulfilling. And that's what that time was. So,
and your mother was a rock.
Yeah.
Miss Rose, Grandmama Rose.
They had an interesting marriage.
They were a team.
But
a strong team.
So fast forward a few years, and obviously that was the impact of that, affected our family, because he was, one of the songs written on that album is called Safe Haven. And he was the family patriarch. Everybody kind of surrounded we'd go over to their house for meals and that type of thing. So I fast forwarded a couple of years, and I'd put that Curing Bridge, all of those posts and stuff away, and it was coming up on his anniversary of his death date. And I pulled those things out and I reread them, and it put me in a place of how incredibly giving all several hundred of those people were of their time and their emotions and their love that they poured out through that Caring Bridge site. And so I said, I want to do something in return for them. And there were so many mentions of gospel hymns and scripture throughout all of those posts for those 6 months. And so I talked to Linda first, and I said, I want to get us as a family down in, I've got a project studio in the basement here, that just a small workstation with Pro Tools, and we can record, acoustic things. And I said, and I would love to record some of those hymns and then just print up enough copies of CDs to send out to those people as a thank you for getting us through that time. And so I'll share this. I'm sorry I'm being long-winded.
No, you're good.
So I was having a hard time because Hillary and Lady A, they were slammed. They were just so busy at that point in time. They had been together for 5 years. Truly one of the, the biggest vocal group at the time in country music, for sure. And so I was just struggling with approaching her because I knew that her time, and she's,
she's a mother by now.
A mother and married and mother. Mm-hmm. And so the time crunch thing, but I was sitting down and I got over that. And here's why I got over it. I was sitting in, and I'd gotten my dad's truck for my mom just to have it and then keep it. And so I had pulled up, I'd gone somewhere, and I'd pulled up, and I was just sitting out in the truck outside of my garage, ready to pull in. And Dr. Bond, I felt and I've never felt it since. I had not felt it before, but I felt the strongest presence of the Lord, the Holy Spirit, saying, you need to do this. And I knew exactly what that meant. I didn't hear a verbal voice, so I'm not going to say that I heard an audible voice, but I felt it so strongly that I knew that if I did not go through with it, that I was being disobedient. And so I followed through. I approached Hillary. She had to go out of the country for a couple of weeks, but when she came back, she said, well, Dad, I do want to do this, but if we do it, I don't want to do it down in your basement. I want to do it to where everybody can hear it. And so thank God my daughter doesn't try to put God in a box like I do sometimes and thinks bigger than I do. So she gets on the horn, and she convinces Ricky Skaggs, the great Ricky Skaggs, to produce the project for us. She gets her label to buy in, and so the entire, Universal Music Group label, they got on board. Her management company got on board. And so all of a sudden, we take this little mustard seed of an idea as a thank you to people, and God takes it and just explodes it. And so we record the project, and it was just after that, my only role in this whole thing, by the way, was answering that voice, and going through with it, because after that, I felt like I could just lift my feet up, and just the wave of expertise and precision and artistry and love just carried us through the entire project. So we again, this is another topic we could talk to you all day about. We felt from the get-go that this project was anointed, and we know just from the hundreds, if not thousands, of communications back from us from people that have heard the songs and heard that project, that it has impacted people as we wanted it and as we prayed for it to, by giving them hope of what to put their hope in and to what to have faith in. And that's keeping our minds on eternal matters and heavenly matters, and staying on an upward path, as opposed to what we're just dealing with here today with things,
Well, what did it mean Well, what did it mean for all of you to win 2 Grammys for that album?
Oh, well, first of all, as a mama and a daddy, to be in the studio enveloped in amazing music, singing it, harmonizing, writing some of it, and seeing your kids behind the microphone, and I mean around all these amazing musicians, and like with Ricky, we feel like he didn't produce it as much as he pastored the project. So nothing about awards or acclaim was ever, not on this one. It was all about what song belongs here, and I can't even describe it, but all of the other things came also as far as the Grammys, and it's still, you can pinch me, and I still can't
would
quite
love for you
believe
to,
it.
one thing, this is just kind of put a exclamation point on this project, and I want you to tell the story if you can. We were going to do gospel hymns, and we did do a few gospel hymns, traditional, but we all agreed that we wanted to do some new music as well. And so Hillary wrote, a couple of songs, and she sent out to songwriters, and we got songs in that we recorded, but then we wrote with some of our friends as well. And one of the songs on the album that we wrote, had a hand in writing, was called "We March On," and it's about, hey, sometimes you're in the dark, sometimes you're in the light, sometimes you're in the valley, sometimes you're on the mountaintop, but no matter, you march on. That's the theme of that song, and it's got a 4 in the floor kind of march beat to it as well to emphasize that. We're writing that song out on our back porch, not 10 feet from where we're sitting right now, off of our kitchen.
It was warm.
Yeah.
It's snow right now. But.
And Hillary had gotten pregnant with her with the second child. And you tell it.
So she knew that something wasn't right, and she didn't feel right, and all indications made her worry, her and Chris made us worry, and that day she had a doctor's appointment. And so we rode on the back porch, and we had finished it. There were 4 of us, and I get a phone call, and I knew she had a doctor's appointment that day. So I go out on the front porch and sit down, and that's when she tells me that the baby's dead. It's not alive anymore. And I mean, it was just, we had just gotten so excited about this song, Marching On, and now she's given me, and she's sharing this sad, awful news that, so it's just, you were talking about the extremes.
Yeah, dichotomies, yeah.
Because what was fixing to happen is she's got to march on. She's got to, somehow, God is going to give her and Chris, our family, the strength to march on. And all I can remember telling her when she told me that in tears, we don't understand all this, but right now you are in a club, and I'm sorry that you are, but you are now in a club that you can relate to a lot of people, a lot of women, a lot of families who have gone through this, that now you can talk to them, you can empathize with them. That's when she wrote a few weeks later. I don't know how she even had the courage but she did. She got with 2 friends, and they wrote "Thy Will," which was her healing scripture. It was her healing song, and that is one of the many emails and conversations that people just have to tell us. They just want us to know that song. I mean, anyway, so many situations.
Encourage your listeners to go find that. You can find it on YouTube. Just type in "Thy Will," Hillary Scott and the Scott family.
That song and all the other 13 or 12 that goes along with it. And my father-in-law I know he's in heaven just beaming. He already would be because you're in heaven. But he knows, I feel like God gives people in heaven a glimpse of some pretty cool stuff that gets people down here to come up to heaven eventually.
Oh,
I feel
amen.
like he knows that this record, and it's not really us. It's not because oh, we're such great singers, or oh, we're such great writers. It's but the lyrics lead people to Jesus, or lead people to forgive their family member or their friend, or lead people to realize what they have to live for, and that hope is in Jesus. It's free. It's not complicated. We might like to make things complicated down here, but it really is just a simple receive. And then God is with us as we go through this stuff. It doesn't promise it to be roses.
That's right.
But
absolutely. And
all
you know,
of that.
go ahead.
All of that is what we prayed for and humbly prayed for, and it's just been exponentially, is that the word? It multiplied, and it just makes our hearts so happy when somebody said, well, just last week our song, 2 songs from that record were used at my sweet friend's mother's funeral, and they were comforted by that. And it's just no greater compliment as an artist.
No, and it puts things in perspectives as how trivial chart positions and that type of thing is. It really it just puts, when you feel like you're using your talents for God's purpose.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're talking about here, is making yourself available with a servant's heart to do God's will, and to perform and listen and to carry out and love our fellow man, and to encourage each other, iron sharpening iron, and just those things. And that comes, I know that comes with years, and different people get there quicker than others.
And we're country music artists. We're not gospel artists. We have so many friends who are, and we're just, their biggest fans. This is a project that it's, to me, it doesn't really have any
shelf life.
It can go on and on long after we're gone.
I'm seeing a lot more, I'm not going to say it's completely open, but I am seeing a lot more country artists that are starting to be a little bit more bolder in letting people know that they believe in Christ, that He is the Savior, He is the healer, He's the deliverer and redeemer. And that is starting to come out in some of the songs, but I'm also hearing it coming out in conversation. And I think it's a testament to country music, the wholesomeness that it still has, the family-oriented vibe that it brings forth through music. It's like people like you said, Ricky Skaggs. I mean, there's numerous artists in country music who have a strong faith in the Lord, and I'm seeing it more and more.
Well, they cut their teeth growing up singing in church.
Yeah.
That's how, probably the majority of them started singing in church. And so we love that aspect of our genre, and are happy, and all I'll say to what you just said is amen. And they better start tuning in, because if you take a look around the world as to what we are facing these days, we need to put our hope in eternal, put our thoughts and our actions into kingdom focused components.
Oh, amen. Well, one last question. What is next for Rylee Scott and Linda Davis?
Well,
I'd like to hear your answer on this myself, because it changes every day, Dr. Bond.
We've always got a project in our minds to work towards, writing some more songs, and that time is precious that we can do that now. Live performances, and especially, it's just crazy how this one project that we just spent a lot of time telling you about, that has brought in material into our show because we want to do songs from that CD. And, you know, we have an hour and 15 minutes that we sing on stage. And that's only by the time we talk, because you can tell we like to talk. So by the time we get through talking, we're only talking 10 or 12 songs at the most. So through the years, we've had many, many, many songs. So how do we pick? And what we try to do is musically find songs that are challenging and fun for us to sing, but yet have some meaning. I mean, have some stories, a connection. And so we're always looking for that next song or songs that can be added to our show to bring more, value to what these people pay for to come hear us sing. And when they leave, it's like, oh, that song, the lyrics, okay, that's really special when the lyrics, but it's like that story that Lang told about his content, you know. So we're always just continuing to create and just pay attention to what's going on around us so we can use that in our performance, because we're just a real, you can call it raw if you want to, but it's real and it's honest. So
you said something I'd like to follow up on, a word that just in my devotions for the past probably at least 12 months, if not 18 months. You said a word a while ago that keeps popping up. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times the word has popped up in my thoughts and in my quiet time, in my prayer, is the word bold, is boldness. And so much to the point to where, and I think people are feeling that. They're sensing, you know, and certainly the church, the Christian church is sensing an urgency in God's timeline where we are right now, and that they are getting more bold. And I think that they are following instruction and guidance from the Lord to be more bold and outspoken about their Christianity and their faith. Because I've even gone to the point of adapting a phrase, and I don't know if someone else came up with it, but as I sit here, I came up with it for me. And that's just boldness in truth wrapped in grace. And I feel like that if we can do that, if we not afraid to speak truth, but make sure you know that it's the truth before you speak it. And
that comes from the Bible.
Because most times,
that's the only thing that's true.
Lord tells us even a fool can seem wise if they keep their mouth shut. And so we do talk a lot. I'm opinionated. I'm type A. So the Lord keeps training me to be certain about when I have an opportunity, when I'm engaged in a conversation with somebody, if I have the opportunity to respond and am prompted to do so. And the only absolute truth that we can find is in between the covers of the Bible. And it's harder and harder to find truth out there. But when we do find it and we know it, be bold in speaking it, but wrap it in love, wrap it in grace, because you never know what somebody else is going through.
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with you. I can be opinionated. I am definitely type A. And ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you one thing. If you allow the Holy Spirit to work through you, you yourself can become strong. You can be confident, courageous, and as the word says, you can do all things through Christ who will strengthen you. And Lang, Linda, I want to thank you so much for honoring us with your time today. And I've loved every minute of our time together, and I've loved the stories. And just keep doing what you're doing. And Lang, I can tell you this, that one line I think is either a title of a song or a lyric to something you need to be writing up right now.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and this is probably the least amount you've ever spoken on one of your podcasts.
Because we did it for you.
Hey, what type of guitar you got in the background there?
That one is a Les Paul. I have a left-handed Strat, which is mine because I'm left-handed, which is sitting over here off to the side. But I thought because this was a little bit more music based, I picked that one to put behind me today.
Well, I appreciate it. I didn't, I'm a little vain about putting on my readers, or I could have seen that. I think I could have told that was a Les Paul, but anyway, so you obviously play.
Well, I would like to. I've tried, but I think I do a better job interviewing artists than I do playing. So I'll probably just stick with that.
Well, you are a great interviewer, if I could say, because you ask different questions, and obviously you have done your homework on us, and we appreciate that very much. And I can't wait to sit with you face to face and not on this computer.
Well, I will. Well, you know what? I'm going to write that down and make a promise on that, because we are actually planning here, hopefully in the next few months, to come to Nashville and do multiple sit-down face-to-face interviews. And both of you, you're on my list.
Well, how about dinner over here?
I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah. I'll come and I'll hold the microphone. I'll be your audio tech for your shows, because I know some of the people you would get are going to be our friends, and I'd love to hear what they say.
I'll steam your shirt.
Well, yeah, I've got quite a list. We could probably turn it into an interview party. Who knows? But I'm going to keep that as a promise with you guys. I would love to come over, have dinner.
Yes.
We could talk about Jesus and talk about so much more.
Jesus and our kids. Do you have kids?
Oh, yes. I have one son and one daughter.
Okay. Well, no grandchildren yet. That's a whole nother conversation.
But they both play guitar. My daughter plays anything with strings on it, as well as piano. My son plays guitar. So half the house looks like a music store.
Oh,
love it.
That's a happy house if there's music in it.
Oh, amen to that. Well, again, thank you so much, Lang. Thank you, Linda. My gosh, ladies and gentlemen, please look them up. And real quick, Lang and Linda, give all of my viewers and my listeners websites in which they can go and check more up on both of you.
Everything, Linda. I don't have a website. I built so many of them I couldn't even bother to build, to do one for myself. LindaDavis.com. And then Facebook, her profile there is Linda Davis Nashville, and Instagram is the same. And then she can find her on Twitter as well.
I do have a Twitter.
Yeah.
Too.
I know. I follow you.
Yeah. I'm not the technical one in our family. It's Lang, but I'm on. If you look me up, I'm on. You can find me. Oh
yeah, absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, Rylee Scott and Linda Davis. I hope you've enjoyed this beautiful couple and this beautiful interview. So
we've enjoyed it, that's for sure.
You've made a memory for me today. I would tell you that, and I know that we will see each other face to face pretty soon. And ladies and gentlemen, you got to stick around, because we'll be right back after these messages.